Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to connect here at Dear Sunga. It's all about embracing your feminine energy. And today we have an amazing special guest, Aigalesala. Afalava. She is a Samoan Pacific Islander therapist out in Washington doing amazing things. She's also a doctorate candidate. So without further ado, I want to kind of dive into it so we can soak up as much as we can from her. Sala, let us connect and let the audience who you are and where your passion comes from in terms of therapy.
My name is Aigalesala Afalava. I am a licensed mental health therapist here in Washington. But aside from that professional clinical side of me, I am also a wife. I've been married for almost 20 years. My husband and I, we have two amazing boys who are now teenagers. Cannot believe it. And I am also a dog mom. I love animals. It's a little bit about me aside from just being a mental health therapist. I also do like a lot of like community work here in Washington, just kind of partnering with local nonprofits and doing a lot of psycho ed type of work with the Samoan community or the greater, broader PI community around mental health and just talking about different topics about mental health.
So one of the things that you're great at is sharing tools that are very unique to us as Pacific Islanders. What are some techniques as Samoans or as Pacific Islanders that we could use when we're going through high anxiety?
As far as techniques, yes, I think you and I kind of talked a little bit about this before, when we're talking about tools and we're talking about breathing, because teaching clients like how to do breathing exercises is one of the first go-to, in traditional psychotherapy. It's one of the things we always recommend to our clients to do, whether it's teaching them box breathing or belly breaths, for kids. But from my experience in working with some of the Samoan people that I worked with, trying to tell them like, okay, yeah, mga vai kongu, mga vai fafo, they just kind of look at me like, what? I'm going through all of this, and you want me to mga vai kongu, mga vai fafo? I think we would both laugh about it because for one, mental health is really not something that we often talk about in our communities. And so now we finally make it into sitting across from a professional, from a therapist. And now we're trying to teach them something new, something different, how taking intentional deep breaths can help calm down their nervous system. Sometimes it's even a hard thing to grasp, right? So we'd often laugh about it at first. It was like, what? Mahabe komas? And it's about having to sit down and explain to them like the research behind that and how that is really, really helpful. Like taking intentional breath. Like it's not your usual just "Mga ba kung mga bay fafo," it is let's intentionally take this time to take deep breaths, in for 4 seconds. Let's pause over there. Let's exhale for 4 seconds and let's exhale for, and just continue like intentional breathing. It feels weird in therapy, especially working with PI community, but we tend to get through it. But aside from that, I would say other tangible tools that I would use with clients and also works with my PI community is this technique called 5 4 3 2 1. And if you've been in therapy, it's really one of those go-to technique that engages all of your five senses. So tell me five things that you see around you. I can do this with clients in person and I can do this online. Whenever they are super anxious or I can see their emotions are heightened, this is one of the grounding techniques that I usually do just to center them again. And so it's tell me five things that you can see around the room. So they would go off and they'd be like, I see my computer, I see my phone, I see a picture on the wall, I see a pencil, I see the trash can. Five things. Okay, it engages your sights, right? Now tell me four things that you can hear or feel, right? So let's go with feel. Tell me four things that you can feel around you and describe it to me. So then clients would be, okay, so this pen, I can feel it. It's a little bit hard. There's also a soft part. So they're describing all of these things to me, right? And they'll go around and tell me four things. And after that, four things that they can feel. Then tell me three things that you can hear. So then it really takes them to like, okay, let me sit there in silence so I can really see that I can really hear something. So then they'll sit there and they'll be like, "Oh, I hear my dogs barking outside." Okay, that's one. What else do you hear? I hear the whirring sound of my laptop right now. Okay, that's 2. Tell me another thing. So that's 3 things that you can hear. Now tell me 2 things that you can maybe smell, right? So remember, this technique is engaging all of your 5 senses. So then it'll be like, I smell my coffee, that I just have my coffee that's sitting here right in front of me. I smell my candle that I just lit over there. So that's 2. Now tell me 1 thing that you can taste. Like, "Well, I can definitely taste the aftertaste of my coffee, so it tastes a bit bitter." So this is how I'm walking them through this very tangible type of grounding technique that helps to center them again. Because a lot of the times when emotions are heightened, our minds tend to have like a lot of irrational thoughts, right? And so this is when we utilize the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique, it brings you back. Because as I'm talking with my clients through this and I'm telling them, like, tell me 5 things that you can see and everything, you know, before you know it, they're not even thinking about what they were worried about. So because their mind, all of this whole 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, it engages the part of their brain that is in charge of complex thinking. Like they really had to sit and think, like, okay, what is it that I'm hearing? What is it that I'm feeling? Let me describe that. So that's a different level of thinking that it's engaging this part of our brain, right? And so it takes them away from that emotional part of our brain that is all about the emotions, and with that comes a lot of irrational thoughts. So that is, I would say, and there's so many other not only grounding techniques that people can learn, but this is also why, like, the importance of like working with the therapist and going to therapy, because you get to sit down with the therapist and they get to train you and share with you how to utilize these tools, so that when you find yourself in those moments where your anxiety is heightened, you can just kind of like, oh, okay, what was that thing that Sala was telling me again? Okay, it was like something with a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, like it's 5 things I can see, and so it helps them to remember, and then they're able to utilize it in that moment when the therapist is not in the room. And so with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like in my own, sorry, like, as I wish I knew these things when I was little. But going through school, I've learned some of these techniques, and I've used them with my own kids. I've used them with my boys when they were little. Like I shared it with them. Like one of my son, he's sometimes he experiences a lot of strong emotions, as a boy, young boy. And so he would just get into this, like, just crying out, like, and like really angry, right? And so I would teach him, like, I remember teaching him this technique, and it's like, okay, let's play a game. What is 5 things that you can see right now? I know. And my son is here, like, like sobbing, crying, and he's like, I see this, like, I see that, like he doesn't want to like go through it, but he's going through it. And by the end of it, like his breathing is calmed down, because it really it taught him like to slow down and be able to be in the moment. And that's what these grounding techniques really are about.
Okay, if y'all didn't know, so far we try to allot 15 minutes prior to make sure that our tech is working properly. And I'm all panicking here, but her just talking about this, I'm all like envisioning it while you're talking at the same
Yeah.
time. That like totally take my mind somewhere else, and I'm like looking around the room. It kind of distracts your mind. So then it's like, okay, where exactly should I go back and focus on? So that is super awesome. So thank you for bringing that up. That is such a great technique to have. But that is a technique you would have when you're with a therapist, right? Because someone's there to talk you through it. So is there any other techniques that someone could do on their own? I can see that where they can envision the senses, but sometimes we're so into it that we forget. And how do we break out of that cycle?
I'll have clients that'll come in, like parents, and they just spent a whole day at work. They get home and the kids are not listening. The kids didn't do their chores, so automatically their emotions are heightened. And I'm like, oh man, these kids. And so and usually the parents that I've worked with, how do I, like, control myself so I don't lash out to my kids? How do I make it to where I can pause? I feel like I don't pause. I feel like I just jump right in. Like, my kids are not doing their chores. I jump right in and I'm like yelling at them, and, all of these things. Like, they tell me that they've experienced this kind of parenting from their own parents. And they're like, well, I don't want to be like that to my own kids, because I know what that was like. And so you end up saying things as a parent that you regret. And you end up like, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. So I teach them this technique. I share with them like so very, very important in that moment. remove yourself from that situation. You walk in the door, the kids are crying, they haven't done their chores and all these, and you've had a tough day. Immediately, if you feel like you need some time to kind of decompress from work, either go for a walk to clear your mind, remove yourself from that situation. Like if you're already noticing like, oh, these kids finna get it, like remove yourself from that situation. Like, maybe go take a shower, go wash your face, put some water on your face, and give your brain some time to like calm down before you respond to your kids. And so definitely the grounding, what I and of course, like another thing, common thing that I always share with them is mindfulness techniques. But I find that that doesn't really take well with Samoan people sometimes, because when I tell them like, okay, you just go play is a thing that's like, put your thoughts on the leaf and let it, float down. It's like, nah, it doesn't work. Doesn't work. Like they want something that they can, do, like physically do, right? So I always recommend like you then take yourself out of that situation before you respond. Give yourself some time to calm down. So doing this type of grounding technique really does help. Another grounding technique I would share with them is, and helps them to be in more tune with their bodies, is what we call a progressive muscle relaxation. So as you come in, you're feeling tense from work, from a rough day, go into your room, lay down, and the progressive muscle relaxation is a type of exercise that helps you to really tune into your body and helps you to relieve a little bit of the tension that might be going on in your body. And that helps physically. So how that progressive muscle relaxation technique works is you just start tensing up. You're like for example, you're laying down or you're sitting in a chair like this, and you are just tensing up different parts of your body. You can start from your toes. Okay, you just sit there and you just kind of curl up your toes, and you hold that for like 5 seconds. Curl it up as tight as you can and hold that for 5 seconds, and then release it a little bit, just so that you can feel what your body felt like when your muscles are tense, and then that release that you get in your body when you finally like let go of that tension. So you start from your toes, and you move your way up your body to your calves, to your thighs, to your stomach area, to your shoulders, and then all the way to your hands. Even you just tighten. All it is, right? It's so simple. It sounds like, but it's like, and I'm kind of like summarizing all of this, but in therapy, this is what therapists are able to not only practice with their clients so that their clients know how to correctly do them, and then it teaches them like, okay, the next time, because your therapist is not always going to be there with you for every single moment of your day. So these are tools that we teach clients so that way when they are in those moments, hopefully they can reach into their toolbox and be able to utilize those things.
So that's really good. Like, so I've done a little bit of therapy. So I see the importance of it. I really feel when you're investing in yourself, it goes a long way. I have only 3 sessions with that therapist, but the techniques that I took away from it were great. And like you said, like these are like overall general techniques, and not everyone gravitate towards it. So having to work directly with you, you can get to figure out what would work and not work for you. So I see that. I'm curious, like growing up in Samoa, I feel like the choices were very limited. Have you always wanted to be a therapist? And so
Yeah.
I'm curious as to where that passion came from and how it started. Can you talk a little bit more as to how you got here?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The opportunities growing up in Samoa is very limited. And no, I do not have a polished story of how I have always wanted to become a mental health therapist. A mental health therapist is one of those things that you don't even know what it is. Like growing up, it was never heard of really, but it doesn't mean that we weren't going through things as young kids growing up in Samoa. No, we were definitely going through mental health things. Now that I reflect back and I'll speak to my own experience, like I did not see that. I did not see any resources. I did not see or hear of anyone in Samoa growing up that was, in this profession. All it was the military, and that's the path that I took straight out of high school. I think later on, because I don't know if I share with you, but I was in the military for like 14 years. And so it's a whole career in and of itself. And so I did get to a part in my life where, having a family and having kids really does change perspective for you. the benefits and the opportunities that the military afforded me to be able to continue my education. At first, it was one of those things where I still don't know what I want to do. The military was my life. That's the whole life transitions, right? It's like, dang, I did this for like 14 years and I don't know how to do anything else. I remember that was my mentality getting out of the military. I was like, I've done this for 14 years. It's all I know how to do. I don't know what else I'm going to do, but I just kept going to school. I just kept going to school. And the more I continue on with higher ed, the more I actually found things and topics that I was interested in. And so my undergrad was in social work, and I really enjoyed that until I realized that in one of our role playing, we did a lot of role playing in my program. I realized in one of our role playing that I was really good at working one on one with people. It just came naturally to me. So every time we would do these role plays and our professor would give us case studies, what would you do in this situation type of scenario, everyone was so nervous to kind of have that one on one talk. Everybody was just like, it wasn't their thing. And it's like they had to be taught how to be in that interpersonal space. But for me, it just came naturally. And I remember everyone in my undergrad was like, wow, Sala, you're really good at this. Like, you're just a natural at talking with people. And I think like recognizing that that was a strength for me really helped me to realize like, okay, maybe there's something else that I can do that focuses on this one-on-one interaction. And so that opened up my mind to pursuing my master's, which is focused on counseling psychology. And with that came being a licensed therapist. I think after I graduated with my master's and became a licensed mental health therapist, I realized that I was one of two Samoan mental health therapists licensed in the entire state of Washington. And that was mind blowing for me because at that time I was like, wow, it is like 20 something, 2022, 23. You're telling me that there's only two? Like it was just mind blowing for me. So I think that it inspired me to keep going in my field, to do more. And the more that I continue to pursue education in my field, the more I realized that there was less and less of our community in these spaces. And so I just kept going. I just kept going. And then I find that like it was a much needed work. Like the demand for mental health services, the need was so great and significant that we were underrepresented as providers. So, I think that's one of the factors that really just continues to push me into this direction.
I love that you're talking about being one of the few people in this space because just recently you all came together, Pacific Island mental health providers or practitioners, if that's the correct way to say. But you had a recent conference that happened in May. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit more because it's a new concept and not that many people in our community are aware of it. And are there any upcoming plans to kind of expand on that?
Yes, it was a historical event is what it was. It's sad that it's historical because it's like we're at the point where we're like, dang, we should have already been having these types of spaces, but no, like this is the first of its kind. It is a Pacific Islander mental health conference, and it was the first mental health conference in the US that was facilitated and hosted by Pacific Islander clinicians. And I know you were like saying, clinician, therapist. It's all these words are used interchangeably within our fields. But yes, it is an event that was absolutely just amazing. I'm still kind of processing it still. It was never been done before, surprisingly. A lot of the times when we go to these professional psychology conference, it's usually hosted by a huge organization that, is trying to, cover a bigger span of population, but never one that is specifically for Pacifica people community. And so I think it was just amazing space to be in because everyone that was there, and mind you, like it was put together by, when I say like individual therapists, like we're not even an organization. We're just a whole bunch of individual therapists, social workers that are spread across the US. Some of us have our own private practices. Some of us, are working for maybe government agency. So we're all individuals, but we came together. Like, we meet once a month to do case consultation and stay connected. So we just came together and say we should probably do a conference, but for our people, hosted by us. So we're not an organization. We just all got together. We asked the community for some sponsors, and the community came through. And as soon as we pushed out information, dates, and things like that, within like not even a month of launching the flyer about our event, we were already at max capacity of registration. All in all, it was a really amazing event. We were covering a lot of different topics, everything from psychology and spirituality to psychology and, Pacifica mental health, what that looks like, psychology within the Pacifica LGBTQIA community, just different topics on integrated healthcare, colorism. It was such a beautiful space to be in because you had PI, Pacific Islander clinicians that are experts in what they do. And now this was a space where they were able to give back to their community. And our community was loving it. Representation really does matter. Overall, it was a really, really good event. Oh, as far as like any upcoming, we're it's still in the planning. I think we took like a month off to take some time for ourselves, the planning committee, and then whenever we decide to push out the next one, which is should be next year, then we'll definitely put out that information. But nothing is settled as of yet.
That's awesome. I'm going to make sure that I don't miss it next time. I thought it was more of like this is just for the organization, people who are experts in the field. So thank you for sharing that. And hopefully more people will be in that space. Well, and now you are working on your doctorate degree. And so you have a specific field that you're looking into. Could you share a little bit more what you're like looking further into in terms of therapy?
Yeah, so in terms of like my research right now, like I am a fourth year doctorate student. I have one more year to go, and that final year kicks off in the fall, and it is all internship or residency, as some might if might know it better that way, but it is internship for psychology. And so my research right now is on exploring religious beliefs, coping, and psychological well-being within the Samoan community. So I intentionally wanted the focus of the population to be Samoan community because there's really not that much research out there, whether it's about Pacific Islanders in general or specifically Samoan community or Samoan people. So I really wanted to contribute to the research around my Samoan community and the reason why that's the focus. But yeah, I'm just that's what my research is about. I haven't had the time to I've already collected, all of my data, my research. Just a few months ago I had pushed out my survey for my dissertation and for people to complete, and I had about a little over 300 people complete my survey. And so I haven't had the time to kind of clean the data and be able to, analyze it and see what the findings are. Though I'm really, really curious and interested as well to see what that looks like, because whatever the results are, whether it's significant or not, it'll just contribute to the literature regarding our community.
That's awesome. Is there anything that we could do on our end to help support your dissertation?
I think like right now, the biggest part was getting participants for the survey. And yeah, within like a few hours of posting my dissertation survey online, I already met like the minimum requirements for participants, which is so amazing because this is often like one of the difficult stages for researchers is getting participants for their studies. I did not have that problem. Like it just, within hours, like I think I only needed like 60, but within hours of posting my survey, like I already met the minimum number of participants. When I do share the results of my study, yeah, feel free to share it. It's information for our community, and this will be research um, you know, from the people that was gathered from from our community people. So yeah, just I think being able to disseminate the information would be the next step as far as like community help, was just like, okay, just share the information. You never know who might need it or have a good read about it.
So you could have picked any other topic to work on your dissertation. Why be very specific about spirituality? Is that just more of a personal journey, or is it just because there's a need in the community?
Yeah, it's not only a personal, I am a person of faith. Faith is a huge part of who I am as an individual. But at the same time, you can't really talk about the Samoa or the Samoan way of life without including faith and spirituality. Everything in the Samoan culture is centered around faith and spirituality. To speak on anything cultural and not acknowledging or bringing the faith piece into it, I think it would be like just a I don't think it would be a good idea because there's like I said, there's faith and spirituality is strongly integrated into the Samoa, into our Samoan culture. I think that's one of the main reasons why. So one being that it is a integral part of our Samoan culture, and then two, because I am a person of faith as well, I'm curious and I'm interested to see what that looks like, what that data looks like.
That's super awesome. So before you became a therapist, faith has always been a part of your journey or who you are. Now that you've become more into your doctorate degree, learning, reading, has there been a change or anything that you could share?
I think with me being a person of faith and faith being one of the pillars, strong pillars for me as a individual, and then going through like schooling, and some would even say like psychology is like a secular field, right? Some would say like, oh, psychology is and spirituality are fake, like they don't mix and that kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of where you're probably thinking about like how has like my approach changed. I think like me being rooted in my faith, strong believer in God and the Holy Spirit, like I think me being rooted in my faith, going through my psychology program all of these years, like it really hasn't changed like my beliefs or hasn't really changed how I think about things. If anything, like even going through my doctorate program, we learn like spirituality is a huge piece when we're talking about holistic care with people, right? And so whatever that spirituality can look like for people, whether that is, for some people, spirituality can look like going to buy a cup of coffee. It looks different for people. Going through this feels like being able to acknowledge that that is a thing, right? Being that it's biopsychosocial spiritual, or it's good to make sure that we are aware of those things when we're working with clients, psychological, spiritual, social, all of those things contributes to a holistic well-being of an individual. The point is for us as psychologists or as mental health therapists to make sure that we are open to understand we could be working with people that are like, spirituality for them might look different than it does for me. But the whole point of like being in that space or in therapy is not to impose. It's never to impose our own beliefs on clients. We have to have room for that and even inquire, for our clients to like, hey, is spirituality a part of your life? If it's not, okay, go, we'll move forward. And if it is, then how can I explore that with you? What does that look like? And so going through like all of my programs and everything, like it's not to take away spirituality or go against spirituality or faith in that matter, but it is more so how do you work alongside? How does psychology come alongside, whatever people's beliefs are? How do you come alongside that spirituality? Because at the end of the day, it's not about me, it's about that person, in that space. It's not about me, it's about that person that I'm working with.
I can see this like taking it to a whole another level because for us in our Samoan communities, we always go to our whaiwhiao if there's ever an issue. But I love providing that bridge or actually increases or just provides more care and help for our community.
I want to add to that too, Nan, because like one time my colleague and friend Scarlett and I, another Samoan therapist here, because when I say like we do a lot of community classes for the Samoan PI community here in Washington. So one time we actually did a class or a conversation with the Samoan whaiwhiaos and pastors about mental health. And so that was huge and it was very informing as well. And so sometimes like people have the perception or that like in the spiritual community or in the faith community, we're very against anything that is not God, that doesn't have to do with the Bible, that doesn't have to do with prayer. And so sometimes like people can get stuck on that, but really I think all it is just misunderstanding even, or people just don't know. So we had that conversation we gathered some whaiwhiaus from different denominations, and we did a really basic one-on-one psychology, mental health type of conversation class with them, explaining to them what mental health is. Because when we started launching our mental health classes to the community here, we did have some pushback from some people in the faith. I'm not going to say all the faith community, but we did have some pushback from the faith community of people kind of saying like, "Oh, well, what does the Bible say about that?" Thinking the approaches that we're bringing from psychology is coming against faith, when really it's not. I'm like, I'm a woman of faith. Trust me, like trust me, okay, like. And so I think like, so we had to really have that conversation. And for them it was like sharing with them like, okay, this is what it is, this is what mental health is. All it is, like therapy is just another avenue of help. Like there's nothing wrong with praying and going to church and going to therapy. Like it's okay to do that, right? And if you are wanting a therapist that is a Christian, then fine. There's a lot of therapists out there that are like saying like, I am a Christian, and if that's a therapist you're looking for, we can show you how to get that. If that's not a therapist you're looking for, then you don't have to filter it that way. But having that conversation was really powerful, because some of the feedback that we got back from the pastors was strongly connected to our ancient beliefs, from back in the days. Like it's a curse. Like if someone in your family has mental health issues, it's because they're cursed and their parents did something that they weren't supposed to do, and now their children are kind of reaping that, right? And so sometimes like some of what the pastors were saying was really strongly tied to our cultural beliefs back in the days. And sometimes like those are strongly still rooted in there. So it's having to really sit down with them respectful, us knowing our Samoan culture. Respect is, if I need to get information across to the Samoan community, I do need to go through the church. I do need to go through the whaiwhiaus, because that's where most of the Samoans go to. This is the most where they gather at. They go to the different churches, different congregations. And so it matters what information comes down from the whaiwhiao. It matters what information comes down from the pastors. So if we have a pastor that is saying like, if we have a pastor that's saying, "Oh, I don't think you guys should go to therapy," right? Then that's going to inform how the church members are going to feel about therapy. And so it was really important for me to like make sure that I connect with the religious and faith leaders of the Samoan community, because I knew that if I could get them to understand what therapy is, because our people are suffering, like our young people are suffering. There's still like a lot of things that we're going through in silence, but our people in our community don't want to reach out. So it does matter. So I think having that conversation with those pastors really was helpful, not only for us as therapists, but for them as well, because then I gave them the opportunity to be able to be like, "Hey, if you need us to come through and do a class for your church, let us know." So that's been amazing.
So I love that you said that, because I think one of the things when I was actually learning about therapy is that it's almost like dating, because it's like, you get to go and figure out how it actually, if this person is good for you or not. And I also love that even though, you actually have a community of women like you and Scarlett for sure are out in Washington. And so it's not like there's any competition, and that's where Dear Sunga kind of leans in, right? You're both kind of dared
Yeah.
to build each other up and
Yes.
just be there. I know we're kind of running out of time because we are on a time crunch, because she has appointments and she's a busy woman. So there's a lot, and hopefully we can have more discussions at a later date and time. But thank you so much for taking the time to kind of sit with us. But I'm curious, as you've got so much going on. You've got, you're a therapist, you're a mama, you're a businesswoman, you're doing it all on your own at the same time. You're part of these organizations and everything else. I'm just curious, what are some way that you kind of like unplug and just like going back to mental health? Like how do you keep at it and still be you and not go crazy?
Yeah, I feel like, and this is like I feel like this is the default answer that everybody goes to, is like self-care, right? And so self-care for me looks different, and I'll share that in a bit. But really, like, I think for me, and trying to, balance all of that, right? Like that word balancing all of it. I want to share a different concept because we're always used to saying like, how do you balance all of these things? And I think like what I realized is like, there's really, when we're like, when I think about the word balance, right? I think about you, like someone standing on like one leg and they're trying to juggle like a couple of balls, right? And so you're trying to balance all of these things. And when I have that visual in my mind, like for me, it's not sustainable. Like being able to like be on one leg and trying to like juggle things, right? It's not sustainable. I cannot do that. I probably can't do that for like a minute even. And so but that's the visual of balance that I have in mind. And so I think like I've like sort of reframed balance in my mind to where it's like, how do I have peace in different areas of my life? Right. And so being a mom, not trying to, because if I'm thinking balance, I'm trying to juggle all these things, like I'm constantly going to be running around. But if I reframe that in my own mind, I'm like, how do I have peace in being a mom in my role of being a mom? And what does that look like? Well, my kids are doing good in school. Nobody is hurt. My kids aren't getting into fights at school. Okay, I have peace in, being in that role. Do I have peace in being a wife, to my husband? What does that look like for me? Do I have peace in being a student, a doctoral student and everything like? And so I think I've like in a way have reframed that in my mind from like balancing to like as long as I have peace, within myself, like in all of these different roles and hats that I wear, then I'm okay. And I think like being able to like intentionally set those boundaries really helps a lot. So learning to say no to any like additional things that come up, whether it's professional commitment so that I can preserve some family time, or, maybe saying I won't be able to attend your game today, son, because I have to study for this exam that's coming up. Right. And so having peace with that. And so, when you're asking about like, balancing all of these I do have a lot. I have so much, but I think over the years, I really have learned to just have peace in the different roles and the different hats that I wear.
Thank you for sharing. I think that's super awesome. And I think that's the thing, right? We don't necessarily have like, it's not just tools, but just a reminder to ourselves, where is that peace? And so, I mean, I have to tell like anyone that's out there that's listening, like earlier today, like we were having some technical, like we've actually met before earlier and it was going well. And today I'm like freaking out a bit, but Sala has just this calm energy about her. So if you ever have a chance and you're out in Washington, or maybe I don't know if you do any virtual sessions, but if you ever want to try reach out to her, I'll provide the link at the bottom. But again, thank you so much, Sala. That's exactly what we're here for, dear Sunga, is just as women to share like what we do, and hopefully we'll have more conversations, and hopefully this kind of like opens doors for anyone out there to kind of like reach out and just consider therapy at some point in time and in life. But I wanted to take this time to thank you again for just your energy, just coming in and just being super awesome about taking the time out to make this happen. It is super appreciative, and I'm grateful for it.
Thank you for the opportunity, Nan.
So to everyone else, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. That would be super great and it's super helpful. But as of now, we leave you with Alofa and Mana.